Floating through these clouds, somewhere far away, all that's left of this place are these broken remains.
Greetings Awoken, and welcome to our Lost Skies Dev Q&A panel. My name is Adam and I'm the Community Manager for Lost Skies. Today I am joined by our wonderful developer panel, Sveta, Luke, Tom and Ollie. Let's do some introductions. Sveta, what do you do at Bossa?
Hey, so my name is Sveta. I'm the producer for Lost Skies. So I look at the scope of the game, I look at how we ship it and work with the publisher directly.
Awesome. Luke, how about you? I think most people know you already, but for those that don't...
Yeah, I've cropped up a few times. I'm the lead designer on Lost Skies.
Awesome. Tom?
Hi. I'm Tom. I'm the principal developer. Basically work on just about everything to do with the code.
Cool. And Ollie?
Hi, I'm Oliver. I'm a game designer and I primarily work with the AI and loot, but kind of have worked on a little bit of every system, I'd say.
Thanks for those great introductions. Just to quickly explain what this video is. By the time you watch this video, Lost Skies will most likely be already in early access. We knew our incredible community would have a lot of questions about this, so we asked the community to ask us questions on Discord. There were so many that we weren't able to answer them all in a single video, so we asked the community to upvote their favourite questions. There are 30-ish questions in total. Let's get started. Okay, so first question. No-Till Feldig asks, when will dedicated server support be added? I guess that's a question for Tom.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I think this is a post 1.0 feature, or it's most likely going to be. So we definitely plan to do it, first and foremost. There isn't we're not just hand-waving it. There is going to be dedicated server support in the plan. But I would probably say, you might want to ask Sveta because she's responsible for time management rather than the developer constraints. There's definitely a desire to do it amongst the dev team, but it's a question of when we fit it in.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think that it's definitely a no for early access specifically. We can try to push it for 1.0, depending again on when that happens.
Right.
But absolutely, it's part of our plans, and that's what we want to see for the final version of the game.
Yeah. To go into the technical detail a little bit, the actual implementation of a dedicated server shouldn't be too dissimilar from how the game is structured at the moment, because when you're running a world and you start a session, you are actually running a separate dedicated server process when you do that. So it's just a case of splitting that out from the game and allowing that to run without there being a full client.
So next question is for Luke, actually. This is from Kia. How many developers behind Worlds Adrift are currently working on Lost Skies, and any notable members from the previous dev team making a comeback?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's definitely quite a few. Was it 3/4, 3 out of 4 on this call are worked on Worlds Adrift to varying degrees. I was the lead designer back then, and Tom was still doing all of his programming. The grappling hook that you play in Lost Skies has progressed and been developed by Tom alone since Worlds Adrift. So we're looking at about 10 years of work on that system now.
That's crazy. And
we have Ollie, who was actually just a tester for Worlds Adrift back in the day, and he has migrated over to design for Lost Skies. There's myself, of course, and then we have Andy, our principal technical artist. He was also doing the same role on Worlds Adrift. We've got Claudia, our lead artist, and she was doing a similar role in Worlds Adrift. I swear there has to have been more. But yeah, I would say there's a good chunk of the team have come back to give this another go.
Okay, next question's been asked by many people in the Discord in various different ways, so we've kind of condensed it into a chunk of question. So this one's for Sveta, or at least Sveta's going to start answering this one. We'll probably jump into a bit of a conversation, but multiple people ask, how often can we expect non-critical major updates, e.g. new content, changes to existing content, etc., throughout early access? Will this be a consistent time frame, e.g., at least one major update every 2 to 3 months, or will the time frame be different per update?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I don't think we are going to have like a very specific dedicated schedule in early access for updates. I know that our team is super fast at pushing out hotfixes, for example. Like we did the same thing for the demo during Next Fest. We actually pushed out like 3 hotfixes, I think, throughout that time. So if we see something really critical that we know we can address, we'll just do it ad hoc and push out the update because we'll continuously be working on the game. In terms of the content and additional things, so we will have, probably by the time the video is live, the roadmap live that everyone would be able to see. So it's got chunks of content that we would like to add throughout early access and 1.0. And when we're ready to do that, we'll obviously make an announcement on Discord and on socials so everyone can see. But in terms of kind of quality of life and bug fixing or performance improvements, that would be like a continuous thing, not necessarily tied to any schedule. Just pretty much as often as we can. As soon as we have a stable build, like why not ship it?
Yeah, we have a few like systems and features that were held back slightly for early access, just because some things just need a little bit more polish or finishing, or just just priorities really. And it'll be good to kind of get a feel for what the kind of players actually want to see, right? They'll be in the roadmap. Some maybe like we just had something that we're like it was little bit on the way, and we realized that actually it does make a big difference to the experience, and then we can kind of shift some of that up and bring some features forward based on how the players are sort of reacting and engaging.
Okay, next question is from Sea Sparrow. How large will the initial early access map be? How many islands? How often will the islands change during early access? So that's 3 questions in one, and that one's one for Luke, I think.
Yeah, so I don't want to spoil too much by saying exactly how many islands there are, because I know people have a lot of fun like mapping the world and exploring the unknown. Needless to say, the demo had 4 islands. This has significantly more. And so you're going to find plenty of content to explore. I mean, even we were surprised when players were clocking in like 30 hours in the demo, and that was just 4 islands. So if they play the early access launch with the same dedication, they're gonna find a lot to chew through.
I don't know why you don't just tell people how many islands there are in the world. You obviously know.
I do.
You laid out the world.
It's a mystery, right? Like all the the islands are like hidden behind cloud banks and other islands,
okay.
and I think there's you want to kind of give them that mystery of like, how far can I go? What else is out there, right?
We can't make it easy for the new cartographers guild, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Can you say it's more than X?
It's more than 4. Yeah.
Okay. So 5 then.
Yeah, exactly. There's at least 5 islands. Yeah.
So another question from Sea Sparrow. Will there be an option to create your own small world space, including adding specific islands from the creator? Tom?
For me, yeah, okay. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say about this, but there is.
It kind of goes hand in hand with the dedicated server stuff in a way, right? Like that kind of custom.
It kind of does,
game
yeah.
Things, game rules and that.
Yeah, so we did always want to have the option to customize your server, have server settings, so you can choose, if you want like different levels of loot drops and things like that. Basically, make the game your own. We don't want to tell you how to enjoy yourself, basically. And one of those options was going to be to have custom world layouts. So this is a post 1.0 feature. I would say we want to have a really good, solid world that we've curated first, but then further down the line have not just a small world space, but an entire world that you've decided the layout, you've decided which islands to choose from the workshop and put in your own way, and then potentially have it so every game that you join is a completely different world, and then infinite gameplay, right? Well,
yeah,
that's the goal.
That kind of the evergreen kind of setup, right? Which is, yes, at the moment we do pull in islands from the island creator to populate the world, and so we can kind of guarantee that, hey, you're going to have a good experience, and it's going to be like some fun islands to explore.
Yeah.
But later on, if you as a player just want to be like, actually I want a whole world that's just my islands, or I want to actually just like pick and choose what I want from the island creator, we definitely want to allow that as well.
Yeah, exactly. The way that I sort of foresee it is, it wouldn't be as in-depth as the island creator, this tool to lay out the world, but there would be something user-facing where they can, just drop them in a 2D view, overhead view, decide where all the islands are in relation to each other, and then press go. And that should be as simple as that.
Okay, question from Chenna. Has the scope of the game shrunk with the game entering early access? In the Island Creator, 3 regions are teased, but 1.0 will only have 2, with no mention of the Kyoki or any of the other cultures. Will the game be supported once it leaves EA, or is EA development, EA early access, not Electronic Arts, or is EA development that only post-launch content will get? I guess that's one for Sveta.
Yeah, well, there is a bunch actually to unpack in this question. I feel like there is a few in there. So in terms of the scope, I mean, I have never seen a game that set out in pre-production with the scope that people want to achieve and then actually fulfilling that like one for one. That usually doesn't happen. So obviously the scope changes and priorities changes when you work on the game for multiple years. I think that as we obviously ship in the early access with the first region and 1.0 with the second region, we do have plans to expand that in post-launch. Now that depends on the publisher as well, what they feel like they want to do with the game, how well the game performs. Like we all hope that it performs really well, right? And we can expand it indefinitely, essentially. I know that our development team is like, well, basically lives and breathes this game, right? And wants to see it succeed. So yeah, it's in terms of the post early access support, we are 100% locked into the contract with our publisher for 1.0. So 1.0 is happening. And obviously we'll talk about the dates at some point. Hopefully it's going to be this year. So 2 regions is like a minimum. Post-launch is like a question mark. And then we have to see what we can achieve there. We definitely have a lot of plans for other cultures and regions from what I know.
Exciting stuff. Okay, question from Real Bitters since 1765. I'm sure I've got that date wrong. Okay, how much of a focus will the current feature polish be over new content releases in the early stages of early access? And I think that's probably another Sveta question.
Yeah, well, I think Luke touched upon that actually, in terms of the community feedback. Like if we're seeing that people would rather see more polish on the existing features and some quality of life improvements, then we are going to prioritize that over adding new features, for example, like a map table or something like this, or a harpoon or whatnot. So yeah, it really depends on what we see throughout early access, to be honest. We obviously want it to be as polished as possible. If something is really broken, we're going to be fixing that as a priority.
Yeah, I mean, between the demo and now, our biggest priority has been performance, and we've done a huge amount of just digging through everything and upgrading Unity and all these other things to just get it as performant as we can. So I think, as with a lot of these kind of games, that first foray into the wide open world, you get all sorts of different PC specs and different kind of types of players playing, and you can never really test for every possible outcome and every possible setup, and that's usually why you find that you kind of dedicate those first like couple of weeks to just like performance fixing and any kind of errant like, oh, I was using this particular hardware and I can't play the game, and we have to dig into that and figure out what it is. So yeah, I can foresee that being our first priority for sure.
Question from Base. Do you plan to put more life into the game with the inhabited areas and passive friendly NPCs, which could have had narrative content? I guess that's a question for Ollie.
So yeah, we definitely want to put more life in the game. We want to got more plans for various different types of AI. There are a lot of plans in various Miro boards spread throughout the boss and Miro boards, I guess. So as for passive and friendly NPCs, yeah, we'd love to see some more of those things that kind of inhabit the world, make it feel more alive, more engaging. As for if they have narrative content, so currently the NPCs sort of passively drive the narrative content. They are like narrative events in and of themselves. In terms of like, say, human NPCs living in villages and islands, that's not exactly sort of the vibe we're going for, I guess. It's not quite what the game, I think, like really requires. It's
Well, we're
meant to be
like
that sort of...
yeah, we're in a post-apocalyptic world, right? So everyone's dead, and there's hints that there might be other people out there. The narrative reason is all like the mystery, like is there anyone still alive, and where could they be? Developer reasons are like, you know, humans in narrative like that is expensive, and we had to kind of like the earlier question, right? Like scope effectively. And I think like at least from my vision going forward, like I'd love to, you know, potentially, you know, get to a point where, hey, maybe there are pockets of civilization that did last or survive in some other different culture or region of the world. But I kind of want to keep that open and see how the game goes. And it'd be fun to explore those kind of spaces for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Next question is a beast of a question. Multiple people asked this question in various different ways, like the other one. So I may be reading this for a while, but okay, multiple people have asked, what's the ratio of bossa-made versus player-created islands going to be? Are the player-created islands curated / edited before being implemented, in brackets, for visual and lore consistency, or are they going to be put in game as is? Worlds Adrift had some really wacky stuff, creative for sure, but also highly unimmersive. Can we put our own islands in there straight from the island creator, or do they have to be greenlit by Bossa first? I think that's probably a Luke question.
Yeah, I mean, so the ratio of Bossa to community-made islands is like, it's definitely favors community for sure. There's a couple in there. It's usually like islands that are made like sort of like, you know, just for the fun of it. You know, sometimes like people just have a little creative spurt one weekend and create an island or something. So we almost engage with it in the same way that we expect our players to. As for kind of like any sort of curation, I try to keep editing to an absolute minimum if I can. Sometimes design really good and they might have like a particular, just one thing off from it. Usually in most cases I would like sort of potentially just maybe bank that island and I don't know, sort of players and creators kind of update their islands as they go, and we can kind of pull in some later versions and stuff. But yeah, we do kind of curate them. We like to kind of keep a little bit of a soft approach to like what's lore accurate and immersive. Like we like the idea that players can surprise us with some sort of really cool architecture or something like that, and we can sort of embrace that, and we just say, you know what, yeah, like that wasn't how we imagined that, you know, one of these buildings or sort of like ruins could look like, but it's actually really cool, and we kind of embrace that. You kind of have to be a little bit hands off when you have these kind of community created kind of worlds. You can't be too precious. That said, you know, we still do have that narrative throughput through the game that kind of guides you along, and yeah, you just have to kind of, you know, yeah, like I said, just be a little bit less precious and have fun with it. But hopefully, you know, the islands this time around are a little bit more involved. There's puzzle elements, there's treasures, and so there's kind of like I think the way that the puzzles are set up and the way we sort of where they sit in the world and their reason for existing does kind of guide players to like, oh, this is a generator, so it's in the generator room of like this crashed ship or this old temple or something. So yeah, I feel like the features and the gameplay we've added does direct players to kind of keep it pretty consistent. We've not seen there's any kind of like really super wild crazy stuff just yet.
Awesome.
There's more
Great
to
questions.
that question. Yeah, there's also the can we put our own islands in there straight from the island creator? And that sort of feeds back into the question earlier about adding specific islands from the creator in the small world space question. And I think that is, yeah, that again, that is kind of on the plan, on the grand vision of the game, is to be able to make your own world layouts and allow that. But there will always be this option to play the curated world as is. Like when you just press play game, you are given like a really good experience that is curated by us. But there's always the option to go nuts. You want to have 15 Shrek islands in your world. Like,
That's
you
an old
can.
callback right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. We obviously we don't want to kind of like be the gateholders to getting your content in the game for you to play, right? And so that's why we really want to push for, hey, you know what, like, yeah, we have a curated world, but we don't let that sort of, be the end of your seeing your islands and playing your islands with your friends. We want to get to the point where, yeah, you can just pick and choose whatever you want.
Yeah, one of the things that we have been sort of brainstorming is this potential of having a random spawn point per player, right? Which was always like a really interesting server setting where you could either have like, you start on the tutorial island and then you get the crafted experience that we sort of lay out, or you can start at a random island, and the potential there is that every time you play a different world, it'll be a different experience from the start. The start island may have less resources than is ideal, and that could be more of a struggle to get your adventure going, or it could be it could be easier. I don't know, like there's a lot of gameplay potential there.
I wanted to add one thing as well about the ratio of the islands. I think that, well, since Luke, you keep continuously reviewing the workshop basically, and we'll expand the Region 1 hopefully throughout early access, whilst we are focusing basically as a dev team on Region 2. There's going to be more and more community islands there, right? So definitely worth keeping to push your new cool islands to Island Creator, because we review them and break them in for sure.
Like even the early access launch islands, we still have a huge bank of awesome islands that we're going to expand the world with. The way we've got it set up, it's really easy to do. We wanted the ability to just expand the world, whenever we kind of get to a nice healthy update, and I think that would be fun, just to expand the world and suddenly you log in and there's a load more islands to explore.
Yeah. So long story short, you guys are amazing at making islands. Keep making them and keep blowing our minds. Thanks.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And who knows, you make an island and next week it's in the game, ready to explore for everyone.
Excellent. Okay, moving on. So next question is from Texas Rebel 762. Will there be farming and the ability to raise animals for food and resources? Ollie?
Yeah, so funny enough, this was the very first thing I designed in Lost Skies. It was my first design task way back when. And in classic, very new designer fashion, I hugely over-engineered it and made many multiple pages long document that was not needed. So all that to say, it's definitely been something we've considered. There aren't any current plans for farming and the ability to raise animals, but there are systems we have in place that I think further down the line, once they're in, would be able to interact with farming in a nice way if we decide to continue, if we decide to put farming and raising of animals in. It would be a lovely feature to have, I think, more so on the farming side. Having animals on your ship could be interesting.
Physics.
Yeah, the physics side of things might get a bit interesting there.
Yikes.
But having things like planter boxes that you have to tend, and how that interacts with various buffs and debuffs that you can potentially be getting could be really interesting. So we'd love to have it in. It's not in the current plans as far as I'm aware, but it would be really nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, one of the pillars of the game is, the ship is your home. And so, like, what we mentioned earlier is, when we do sort of start to prioritize what features come in and what players are enjoying most about the game, it could very well be that they, that I want to have a little farm on the deck of my ship. That makes it feel way more homely, and I'm super invested in that. And, and then we can kind of take a look at it and see if that's, it's a good idea to go for.
And I can redeem myself by trying to make a smaller farming design document.
Yeah, not as much, taking care of the soil nutrients and the altitudes and the various plants. Yeah.
They can still put a little baby shrimp on your ship now, right? I don't know if that counts as a pet, but it's
Yeah.
possible.
Yes, you
Sorry.
can imprison a shrimp, an Atlas shrimp on the
Yeah.
deck of your ship. What more do you want, right?
You can't interact with it or do anything with it.
The
You can
moment the
look at
player-
it. It's there.
But the moment the player takes you down below decks and is like, look at my farm, and you just see just
Canister
below
after
decks,
canister of
canister after
shrimp.
canister, leave that ship.
Yeah.
So, question for Tom. This one's from Bagels. Will there be a first-person mode and classic aim system?
This classic aim system. What do you know what that means?
Oh, that might be the Worlds Adrift grapple aim.
Oh, okay. If it is, then that's in. We have that already. So that will be in early access. I'm assuming that is the way when you hold the grapple button, the cursor's free to move and it locks the camera. That's kind of how it was in Worlds Adrift.
Yeah, that's how I've interpreted that question. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to support controllers, and that's kind of quite a difficult sort of thing to get on controller. So we focused on the grapple being a fixed point and responding to when you just press the key. But yeah, we did see a lot of people not complaining, but like wanting the old Worlds Adrift system back. So we have put that back in. As for first person, this isn't planned. I'll just say that outright. There isn't really any technical reason why we can't. It's just there's awkwardness with when you're holding weapons and tools, having like a weapon model on the screen. You kind of need to do a completely separate animation pass for first person traditionally, and we don't really have the resources for that. But also, it might not be that comfortable. I would imagine if you're doing all the grappling and all of the movement with the player, ragdolling, all these kind of things that the player does, with it being completely physics driven, does mean that there could be quite a lot of weirdness with the camera rotation. So it's not planned, but I suppose I could try and experiment one day and just see how motion sick I get when grappling.
The extent of it, I would imagine, is like when you're shipbuilding and you just want to go into first person mode, just like for more precision placement.
I see, yeah.
Rather than like, oh, here's the full suite of a first person like kind of mode or way to play.
Yeah, okay. I mean, we can do the simple thing, which is just put the camera distance to 0, and then you are effectively in the head of the player.
Yeah,
and that's a very simple thing to experiment with. Yeah. So
I know we occasionally get like players like ask for like VR, and I'm just like, grappling in VR, I guarantee it, you will not last very long.
Yeah, people are getting really comfortable in VR now, aren't they? I see a lot of games in VR that are first person and they like full locomotion, and I'm just like, I think I'd fall over, but some people just find it totally fine.
They need a dedicated room with padded walls. I think that's the right?
Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay, next question is for Luke. Multiple people have asked. I think we've covered this to a degree in the previous questions, but how many different areas will be available on early access and release? In brackets, wind wall, storm, sand, etc. Talking about like biomes.
So Region 1 has kind of like different types of islands, which will have various degrees of wildlife and loot and things like that on them, and resources. You have to go out and find them, of course, but they are out there. And then as for under weather barriers do come up a lot, they are on our feature list. How kind of expansive we go and how many there are is still a little bit like we're still figuring out. Like what's a good world layout? Like kind of like how do we sort of break this world up into interesting kind of like areas, sub areas, things like that. There's definitely some experiments I want to play with once we start getting those weather barriers in. You know, like how divided up is the world? How challenging is each one? But absolutely, like going forward, they are kind of like our sort of tentpole sort of like challenges for your ship. The main difference with Lost Skies right now is you have the Seraph and the Heralds and these huge bosses that you actually fight against. And then we have the kind of those environmental obstacles will then come in the way of the wind walls, and then going forward into like the storm walls and the other things that you might recognize from Worlds Adrift. We had a lot of fun with those, and obviously they're a great experience. They were almost there. Like I know some players in the demo did sort of did tap into the little wind wall a little bit and see kind of experience like an early version of it. So it's almost there. We just were like, you know, how do we kind of just get a nice, coherent kind of early access experience without muddying it with all these sort of like random, like unfinished kind of like big kind of features coming in. Just give us time to make sure it's worth the wait when it does come into the game.
Next one, I guess it's kind of a more general question, reading between the lines about bugs and things like that. I guess this one's for Tom. Huh?
I was like, there's no bugs. What are you talking about?
Oh, I see.
Everything's intentional. Yeah.
Yeah.
This one's just about a little refactor. Don't be scared.
Yeah. So this, I guess this one's for Tom, but Matty K asks, will you address loot falling off the side of Sky Islands, in particular from being shot out of chests, and if so, how?
I think this is a Luke question, right? Because this is design. I mean, this is his fault. You can blame Luke for the loot falling out, because initially the chests. I mean, we have like barrels and storages, and you just open them, and there's a inventory layout there, and that's how the chests were in Worlds Adrift. But I think Luke played too much Genshin Impact, and he liked all of these things flying out. That's just very rewarding. All this sort of endorphins.
You can't call me out like that. Yeah, no, I mean it was akin to like Borderlands as well and things like that. Just that kind of like this spurting of loot, and then you see the colors and you go, oh, there's a green, there's a purple, there's a, you know. I was sort of like wanting to sort of channel that. I do admit there are some, you know, there's a couple of instances where maybe somebody's put a chest in a not so great position, and you have to play catch as it flies out. So yeah, I do want to revisit some of that a little bit, and I have like a cleaner loot explosion, or maybe we go down the, you know, maybe like after playing some extraction shooters, we'll decide that you know, when you open a chest, there's a little bit of a loading wheel as each item comes in.
Discovering
you know,
what
keep
each
the
thing
anticipation nice and high.
I think that the whole like physical nature of the game is quite compelling for me, and I think there's, you know, if there's a chest that is precariously on the edge of an island, you might just want to go and park your ship up next to it, just in case the loot all flies out.
You can catch it with your grappling hook as well. All the loot objects are physical. I know I've done that in the past. I think when someone died and their loot bag tumbled off the back of the ship, and I caught it, and like, sort of, like reeled it back in, and I was like, "Don't worry, I saved your bag." Like,
yeah, or if it all explodes out and you can only grapple one, you have to hit the one that's the most valuable, right?
Exactly. Check for the blue or purple and grab
the purple. Yeah.
Next one is something I've seen coming up on the Discord quite a lot. Cannondorf asks, will there be a hoverboard or some kind of skating mechanic that allows for sliding across the ground?
That's the first I've heard of this.
A Tom one.
I like that this has been like considered one of the most upvoted things. I'm in good company with this community. That's a really cool suggestion.
I know, right? I'm having a heart attack right now. Just like literally turned into like a feature creep.
This is right in my wheelhouse though, man. Because like the play is completely physics driven, even when you're just normal locomotion. So there's nothing technical that could stop this happening. It's just, does it fit in with the lore?
Well, I mean, it'll be
else,
like,
you know?
art and visual effects. Like, oh yeah, we make floating ships. I don't think it's a stretch to be like, can I have
That's
a
true.
floating board?
Yeah.
You know, certainly something that, yeah, like if the game goes bananas and we suddenly go, oh, we've got infinite budget, then absolutely we'll get that hoverboard straight away.
Yeah.
Get a few more artists in, you know, job done.
Can't you make a makeshift one at the moment? You just put a log, an Atlas lifter on it, and that's the hoverboard.
Yeah, you can have the
made it
peasant
yourself.
hoverboard. Yeah, cut down a log from a tree and stick a lifter on it. Still counts.
This is cool though. I like this. I want more ideas like this.
And then you can grapple to a sky whale as well, and it's like sky water
Surfing?
skiing.
Yeah.
Wakeboarding.
Sky skiing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh wow, that's actually really cool. If we had these little hoverboards and you're just hoverboarding off the back of your ship, that would be really cool. See, look at the
You're getting
potential
carried
just
away.
from one idea. I am, but it's
Better
the good
slowly.
No, obviously, like combining it with the grapple hook makes perfect sense because of like hoverboarding and then grappling a tree and then like, you know, wrapping around it or doing a quick turn with it. Oh, it just writes itself. So yeah.
Yeah. So that's like 100% confirmed then, yeah? Is that what we're saying?
No, but I'm saying that it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
They're gonna clip that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Tom can have an extracurricular feature.
Yeah.
Question for Ollie. This is from Amori. Will there be more heralds in some areas than others, or is it just one big bad per area?
So the current idea is that there will be one herald per region, which has a unique attack or a unique visual, and has like slightly different behaviors, so that each one feels quite unique to encounter and has various different mechanics that you need to use to defeat it. There are plans, depending on scope, for smaller smaller versions of the Herald that aren't as powerful, that have less attacks, are generally just smaller, that could be wandering between the islands in a various region. And those smaller ones could reflect the behavior and the visuals and I guess the feel of the larger Herald that you can encounter in that region. So this question also seems to allude to like more sky combat, and throughout early access or for 1.0 release, we have been designing sky encounters, which are essentially not quite full islands. They're more collections of various props, and then we have AI that spawn in those chests with rewards, and you'll be able to fly around and find these sort of sky encounters, battle the enemies there, and then get your rewards. So there is like more plans for sky combat, and I've been working on several sky encounters already. So definitely more sky combat.
Mark asks, will ship blueprints be able to also save what you put on them? For example, if I put down a few chests and exterior panels, would I be able to save that and then build the ship somewhere else if the OG ship was lost?
So we do actually have a system of recovering your ship when it's lost. We know that obviously at the shipyard you have the frame design, but if you're out there and you let's say your ship for whatever reason fails in a fight against a herald, or maybe some errant mantas attack and destroy your ship, it then enters like kind of the shipwreck state, and you're actually able to bring that shipwreck back to a shipyard and reconstruct your ship as it was. So any kind of lost ships can basically be recovered. As for like a bigger, more expansive, like, I can just recreate my ship where I want, there's obviously some balance considerations there. Can I just keep spawning all of my ships and then just like dismantle them for resources? Like it gets a little bit into the reeds of like balancing and design finicky stuff. But yeah, as for losing a ship, you absolutely can recover it. And get back most of your stuff, except the stuff that was lost, like because it got destroyed by being.
I do like the shipwreck mechanic that we have at the moment. Is your ship's recoverable, but how you recover it, that's kind of on you. Like you might have to build like a smaller little ship, just designed just to go out and retrieve the shipwreck, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, we kind of played with, because we have like mobile bases, and there's always this sort of in lots of other games, right? There's the loot run. You get on your map or whatever, you get the little indicator that shows where it is. And so with your ship, when it's destroyed, you do get an indicator of where the shipwreck is. And that might be out in the sky somewhere, and so you essentially have to go and recover it, and that becomes like its own little adventure as you strive to get your ship back. But that also you might decide actually that ship was pretty much not much on it anyway, so we have an opportunity now to maybe make something new and try out a new design. We really want you to keep on building ships and experimenting and trying different layouts and things like that. So it all kind of feeds into that sort of builder, but not entirely everything is lost kind of mentality.
Okay, question for Tom. This is from Kurtles. What are the chances we will see melee weapons, electric sword, shield, lance, and such?
It's cool. What do you want a number? Like,
Very tiny, small. At least
Tiny.
for now.
Yeah, I guess this is possible. The punch, the quick melee that you can do, and is pretty much exclusively used to troll your friends, is kind of, it shows that it's technically possible to add some kind of melee system. I think it hasn't been a focus. We did say that we wanted it to be a ranged combat game primarily, but I don't know. I guess defer to design.
Yeah,
again.
I mean,
sorry.
yeah, when we have a game as mobile as we do, with the grappling and the flying ships and all the floating things, like it didn't make sense for us to kind of put too much focus on melee combat, just because most of the enemies are flying, and even getting up to them is going to be a challenge, right? It's just the setting that we have leans itself into ranged far more than kind of like an elaborate melee system, which is why we just have the kind of quick melee. That said, I did sort of have early plans where, like, yes, we have that quick melee, but maybe you can augment that by, hey, yes, it's quick melee, but now I'm holding a shiv, so my melee has some additional effects to it, or it does additional damage. But like, yeah, I can see us not going too crazy in that sense.
We do have one thing on the backlog that kind of qualifies as melee, which is the grapple kick, right? Which is
yes,
augmenting
spoilers,
the hookshot
feature,
ability.
Yeah.
Into if you hookshot into an enemy, you will damage them when you get to them, and do like a little cool kick and backflip off them in some sort of stylish way.
Yeah, so that's some kind of combat enhancements we want to kind of get in during the early access phase. Yeah.
Okay, Drummerdin asks, will the Atlas Shrimp be released alongside early access, or is that still cooking? And that one's for Ollie.
So
I think it might mean the Nautilus,
Yeah, they mean the Nautilus, yeah. So yeah, the adult Atlas Shrimp, the Nautilus, yep, that will be released alongside in early access. You will encounter it on sort of medium islands. They are quite fun, quite interesting. Watch out for them. They look peaceful. They are decidedly less so once you annoy them. Yes, you'll be seeing them in early access.
Next question comes from www. I'll stop there. It's about 20 W's. Okay, this was for Luke. I want to be fly when I fly. My question is, how many articles of clothing are in this game?
We know that Luke doesn't like to give numbers.
Yeah, no, yeah. Famously.
More than
four.
one.
Yeah.
So we do have a few clothing items and a few secrets, kind of like bits of clothing that will be out there to find. You just have to go treasure hunting, and see what you can scrounge from the past.
What a nothing answer. Yeah.
Everyone knows that fashion is the real end game, so we definitely need to cater for that. We do want to expand those systems into like we already have in the backlog, like your ship, like tailoring kind of parts and looms and things like that for you to craft and dye various cloth and clothing and stuff like that. So yeah, we want to push the customization as we develop new features.
I think as a spoiler, you can definitely leave the first island already looking more stylish than when you wake up. Don't know if that helps.
Next question is from Pan Matty. Will we find out what that thing is in the sky, in brackets, city? Another one for Luke.
Yeah, it's good that people are noticing it. It's not there by accident. But to divulge more, famously, as I don't like to say too much, that secrets will be revealed if you play through the story of Lost Skies. I can confirm that early access does give you some clues and hints as to what that might be and why it's there. So you'll have to play the game and find out.
Raxor asks, do we get base building so we can have a base or home on an island? Will there be an opportunity to establish a ground base as a home, maybe even a portable one that can be picked up and moved, or is
I mean,
that's
kind
kind
of
of
like
a
a
sky
ship.
The ship, yeah.
or is the idea to have your ship as a floating base? Ollie?
Yeah, so the idea is that your ship is a portable base that can be picked up and moved. So the ship is your base. It is a movable base. That's kind of one of the core parts of the game, really, is that you take your base with you when you visit an island. It is the source of like your comforts, your upgrades, your research, that sort of stuff, right? So if we try to push for you to have a base or a home on an island, it's not really conducive with the exploratory nature of the game. It's more it wouldn't just gel with like our major pillars. You can technically already establish a ground base as home. You build a ship frame and you just destroy or you sync it with the helm and the ship core, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we saw players in our playtesters throughout sort of the open dev period. Like, it's a pretty robust like sort of shipbuilding system, and we've seen some crazy kind of structures that they've actually just stuck on. And it generally does look like a house. It's a little unconventional how you construct it. It's not as you would expect in traditional survival games where you put the foundations and put the walls up and stuff. But it can be done, and I would be surprised to see some creative players out there actually start just building structures on islands. Sort of doing makeshift kind of ships.
Yeah, but I think even without ships, right, you can kind of have like a temporary base, let's say, because we do allow for some of the things to be placed on islands. So if you want like a temporary camp, for example, whilst exploring the islands, you can still build like a cooking station or things like that.
We always wanted that idea of having a little temporary base as you land on an island, almost setting up like a forward outpost, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like another one of the core ideas is, islands are, fickle. They can reset. They have resources that take time to come back onto them. And they're also dangerous. So you want to have this little forward operating base that you can sort of explore out from, then come back to dismantle and go back up to your ship to then continue that bigger loop of exploring other islands, getting better things and such.
Nice. I suppose anything can be a ground base if you fly it hard enough into a mountain, right?
Exactly.
So,
yeah. I was gonna say, I'm waiting for the moment someone decides to park their ship on top of a Herald, and just that's now their base. I can see it happening.
Don't give them ideas. The physics. I'm just thinking of the physics here.
Okay, question from Will for Luke. Is there a plan to implement gear such as helmets to help minimize instant death on bad landings after gliding?
I think this is quite cool. Like,
certainly, you got like clothing and clothing items. I don't know whether they go as functional as to save your neck from snapping against a cliff face. But I think we'd like to explore the idea of unique benefits, like from particular clothing items. We already have the gear slots and stuff, don't we?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, the gear slots is where this would go in, because we have a utility slot for the head. Yeah. Yeah, that would be cool. Like,
exploring gear stuff is a good, could be a lot of fun.
Because at the moment we have like the hip lamp and the different things that you can put on your body, the glider on the back, for example. There is a head slot as well, I believe, and we have like a head torch in the assets available. I don't think that's implemented in the game yet, but all of these things, like, it's meant to be like a choice, isn't it? Like you're choosing, do I want to have the paraglider, for example, which is like the safe one, or the cool glider, which is the wing glider, if you're more comfortable with it but taking more risk. And this could be another one of those. It's like if you want to use the headlamp if you're exploring a cave, or do you want to use the helmet because you're going for some kind of gliding long distance record or something,
we kind of see the gear slots almost like your like player loadout, so they open up movement abilities and utilities, and it's kind of like every player gets to decide, like, okay, I actually want to, I want my boots to do this, and I want my backpack to do this, and I want my helmet to do this. Like, it's kind of like a nice open system for us in the future to play around with.
It's a good idea.
Add skateboards, helmets, knee pads, and
Yeah, maybe the
Tony
hoverboard
Hawk,
the hoverboard
expansion.
goes on your back, so you got to choose between the gliders or a hoverboard. You know, gotta make you choose.
Yeah, that's cool.
Cloud's gonna look real forward to making half-pipe assets for the island creator.
Yeah.
Yeah, helmet manufacturers, reach out to us about a DLC. Okay.
It's a little bit
Red
immersion
Bull.
break-in, but we'll think about it.
Okay, cool. I think this is another one for Luke. Polky Pies asks, will the Modular Atlas core make a return?
Yes, it's in early access. You will be able to build up a larger Atlas core with some upgrades that you will have to unlock and discover. And as a little bonus there, like, you know, the types of Atlas crystal you use and the resources used to craft these will actually power up your cores even further. So you've got to go out there and hunt some rare resources to get the most out of your skyship cores.
How many upgrades? Luke?
He's not going to tell you.
No, just kidding.
I will let the players discover
More
on
than
their
one.
own. More than one.
Okay, next question. This is one for Sveta. Ryozu asks, now it's a big one, okay. I and a few of my friends owned Worlds Adrift. I appreciate the discount. If I buy the game for a friend as a gift after buying it for myself and they had Worlds Adrift on their account, will A, I get discount on their gift, and B, will they get the exclusives, or should I just buy them a Steam gift card?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, on the whole note of Worlds Adrift DLC, just to confirm that it's going to be available for everyone who has that in their library, and it has 5 cool items that hopefully you'll enjoy. So that's not set up by us. We really worked hard with our publisher to make it happen with Valve. So that's all set up on the Valve side. At the moment of the recording, I can't confirm about gifting, if you're gonna get the discount or not, but I would recommend probably right now getting the game as a gift and then having that person redeem it and applying the discount. But as soon as we have like final confirmation from the publisher, we're going to announce that on Steam and on Discord. Yeah.
But essentially, though, the DLC, the cosmetic items, are just purely determined whether you have Worlds Adrift in your Steam library.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it might be hidden, so check hidden games. Maybe you've moved it from the list
Yeah, good
or
point.
something. But as long as it's on your Steam account at some point, you will automatically obtain the cosmetic items upon launching Lost Skies.
Yeah, there are like 2 different ways from what I know, to set this up. Like as a proper DLC, which is free and it always sits there on Steam, but it's a bit weird because then lots of people can't access it, right? But they just kind of see it sitting there. So what we wanted to do ideally is to have it just applied the discount in the back end. Basically, when you click on Lost Skies, it just applied automatically if you have Worlds in your library. But yeah, we'll see. This is all going to be finalized this week.
Excellent. Next question kind of ties into this anyway, but another one for Sveta, basically. Isaurian asks, will the cosmetic items for those of us who owned a copy of Worlds Adrift stay exclusive?
Yeah, you can't buy this DLC pack. It's not going to be obtainable in any other way. So this is exclusively for the people who owned Worlds Adrift.
Yeah, and we have no plans to open it up in the future. The items in game cannot be traded or dropped or given to anyone else. They purely sort of soul bound essentially to your character.
Yeah, you actually can't drop them basically on the ground. Have someone else pick them up.
One final question, and this goes to all 4 of you, so feel free to fight over who answers first. What's your favourite part of making Lost Skies?
So my favourite part of making the game, I think, came about in my first 3 months in it, where we were basically just making AI. This is my first sort of introduction to AI design. I was told, hey, here's some creatures. Try and make them more fun and creature-like. And I went, okay, and I just pressed a load of levers that to this day I still don't fully understand, but I made some fun stuff. So yeah, like the tiger mantas have been probably like a highlight for me. I can see the community has a love-hate, more hate than love relationship with them. And I'm very proud to have created that level of player antagonism. But yeah, so probably making the AI. And so when I came back onto Lost Skies about half a year ago from another project, I pretty much immediately started work immediately on more AI. So the cave bugs. You've now got me to thank for the cave bugs being more aggressive and more annoying.
Yeah, just for clarity, because a lot of people get a little bit triggered by the mention of the term AI. Ollie's talking about the AI that the creatures have inside the game, not using AI to develop the game. Okay.
The old meaning for it, artificial intelligence within games.
It's so funny that you have to clarify that now.
Enemy NPCs or wildlife.
Yeah. So behavior trees, lots of levers, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Favorite part of making the game? I mean, it's more about how we make it, I guess. I really like that the way we are set up, that we do play tests together, so that we have pretty much everyone on the team like actively playing the game, knowing what the game is about and stuff, not just being isolated, working through like a list of things. So I think this engagement in terms of like the feedback from ourselves and from open dev community, etc., and like using these play tests to kind of prioritize what to do next, I think is a really nice way to work. So I've enjoyed it quite a lot.
For me, it would have to be the community-made islands and seeing what people do with the assets that we've created, because it's always a surprise and it's always just incredible. Every time you see a new world layout from Luke or something, it is like playing a new game for me, because I don't know where those islands are and I haven't seen them before, so I get to experience the content basically as a player would. And that's really cool. That's something you don't normally get when you're making a game. Usually you know it in and out, and you know every system, and you're sick of it, right? And you don't want to look at it again. And yeah, this is the one game where the content is always changing because the community is providing so much valuable stuff.
Do you remember the screenshot that Luke shared where we couldn't even figure out at first how they made this with these control panels and stuff? It's amazing.
It was like a brief video, and I said I had to double take because I was like, it looks like our character, but it doesn't look like our game. And just the way that the creator.
What was it again? It was shells or grass or something.
It was mushrooms.
Mushrooms. That was
hologram of the boss in the game. So we'd almost made like a little computer terminal showing off a hologram, and we were just like, we don't have those assets in the game. Where does this come from?
I think actually it's quite interesting. That links back to the earlier question about some of the islands being kind of wacky and non-immersion breaking. But it's actually if you see what some people can do with just the assets you give them. It might be a little confusing if you say scan what you think is a hologram and it turns out to be a load of mushrooms. But I think it's kind of just a conceit we have to make, right? Because
the idea of immersion breaking can actually swing the other way, and actually they've made something super immersive. That actually is tied like quite heavily with what we've shown in the lore or the story. And then you kind of get like a little nice enhancement on the experience more than like a detriment, which is always fun to see. For me, I guess it was the chance to come back to this universe and this concept and do it justice, because there's countless developers out there who they've had their games cancelled, sometimes without anyone getting to play them or seeing what the work they maybe spent years on. I think it was always hard for us as a team and a company to not only have to sunset that game, but also to not let players still get to enjoy it and experience that world and just play with their friends and players that they've met and enjoyed all that time with. And so I think like there was a real concerted effort, from the get-go with this team to make sure that that can't happen again. Lost Skies is playable entirely offline and player hosted. We definitely will never put ourselves in a position where you cannot just experience this world together. It'll always be there, no matter what happens to us when we're turned to dust in decades' time. You'll still be able to explore the skies. And that's why we mentioned earlier about putting the tools in the player's hands. We have the island creator already. Letting you then construct your own worlds and your own world layouts allows the game to be evergreen and always give you new adventures and things to explore. And I think that's awesome. If the one thing we do give you is the ability to experience this universe and world again, then it would have been worth the extra years we put into it.
That's so wholesome. I love it. Hopefully our viewers do too.
That's what I'm here for.
Okay, that's all the questions. Lost Skies Early Access is live from April the 18th on Steam. Please follow us on all of our socials. The links will be in the description below for our socials and also how to get access to Early Access. If you have an interesting question for us that we didn't answer, all the devs are in our Discord pretty much. So feel free to jump into our Discord. The link will also be below. Invite your friends too. Lost Skies is much better when you play it with friends. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the skies.